Oh my God. I am so embarrassed. I made such a beginner mistake. It's embarrassing. I have actually booked 5 days in Querétaro based on some YouTube videos of people who have come to visit this place and uploaded videos from the beautiful inner city. So I presumed that Querétaro was one of those small cities like Ajijic, San Miguel de Allende, or Guanajuato. So you should have seen the look of surprise on my face when I came in with the bus and the highway like snakes down a hill and I'm all of a sudden faced with this vast metropolis. Querétaro is a big functional city that has very successfully developed itself. But who am I to tell you this? Just come with me and I show you the city.
Hi, I'm Gerhard from Expertise. I want to help you find your ideal location in Latin America. I have lived in many locations from Mexico to Argentina, and I traveled many more looking for a place to call my home. And in this series, I'll try to give you a realistic idea of how life would be for you. Instead of reinforcing unrealistic fantasies you might have developed while watching colorful and romantic travel videos, I'll give you a more balanced idea by showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly of that place. So allow me to give you a helping hand to fulfill your dream. Because of my big fat blunder, I have to reorganize this exploratory trip and add a few more days to my stay. Nevertheless, on my first day I just wanted to get the lay of the land and explore the historical city center. Have some food and see if it's really as nice as YouTube makes it out to be. And in the meanwhile, let me give you a bit of a background to Querétaro. Querétaro, officially Santiago de Querétaro, is situated in the central highlands of Mexico, about 4 hours northwest of Mexico City. The metropolitan area of Querétaro inhabits about 1.6 million people. It was established in 1531 and grew for almost 300 years as a Spanish colonial city. It became the capital of the Querétaro state, and in the latter half of the 20th century, clever investment in infrastructure, as well as business-friendly policies, allowed the city to prosper. The city grows at a rapid rate of 3.5% per year. More and more international corporations make it their headquarters for the Mexican market. There are several industrial parks established around the city, full of warehouses and manufacturing plants. Querétaro has the classic Mexican Central Highland weather, which needs some explaining because it's pretty unique. This is because in these highlands, the highly fluctuating moderate climate of the northern hemisphere with its summer, fall, winter, and spring clashes with the two tropical dry and rainy seasons. This creates interesting weather, which will feel somewhat familiar but also weird. The lowest average temperatures are in January, just like home. However, these temperatures raise much faster because the hottest month is not August, but May. May marks the end of the dry season, and as soon as the first rains come, the temperatures normalize. While it rarely rains during the dry season from November to April, the summer months, from May to October, bring most of the rains, often in forms of thunderstorms. This brings me to an important point. Even though Querétaro is much further south than most North American cities, during its hottest months the temperatures aren't passing 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius. This is because the city lies at an elevation of over 1,800 meters or almost 6,000 feet. By virtue of cities having different neighborhoods of different quality, some of the issues I would research in other locations don't matter all that much or are too time-consuming to research during an exploratory trip. For example, the cost of living and real estate prices depend mostly on the neighborhood you're moving into. I also have to approach restaurants, shopping, and transportation differently than I would in a rural environment. If you are looking at a smaller, rural location, you should check out the local restaurant scene to see if all your tastes are covered. However, in a big city, you shouldn't be worried about the variety of restaurants. But you can actually check out if your favorite franchises are present. Research tip: search Google Maps for your favorites. Having said that, Querétaro isn't famous for its cuisine. They eat pretty much what the rest of Mexico eats. But what Mexicans eat is a freaking amazing cuisine. Now, because Querétaro is a big city, a lot of the US restaurant chains are available. Fast food chains like McDonald's, Starbucks, and Subway are common. I've lived in small towns often enough that I understand that craving a good burger, pizza, or Chinese food can make you homesick. This won't happen in Querétaro. The choice of restaurants, foreign or local, franchises or independent, is so great and constantly expanding that I give Querétaro a thumbs up. When it comes to shopping and the availability of products you desire, your chances in a city are obviously much higher than in a rural location. The question is if enough of your favorite retailers have shops in the city, or if you can buy their items online. Sometimes you just cannot find a product you really need or want in rural Latin America. However, this is unlikely to happen in Querétaro. Many US big box stores and large chains have expanded to Querétaro. In addition, Mexican stores import North American and European products en masse. If you are under budgetary pressure, you can always go to the old mercados with their incredibly diverse products. They have everything from meat to vegetables to clothing, all under one roof and usually dirt cheap. On my third day in Querétaro, I decided to go shopping for clothing and some equipment. I found a new mall 15 minutes north from the historical center where I was staying. I took an Uber and checked out the place. Once I got there, I found a very nice mall up on a hill overlooking the city. I encountered a lot of US and European stores and had no problems finding what I needed. The place was safe and quiet and made me feel like I was in a mall somewhere in North America. Getting access to electronics, brand clothing, and quality products can be an issue in Latin America. But malls like this, and it isn't the only one in Querétaro, make shopping convenient. Your research on transportation should also be different in a city than in a smaller town. In a town, it is more likely that you have to buy a vehicle, because they are less likely to have public transportation. And the environment plays more of a role. Bigger towns and cities usually have public transportation, but issues like quality, cleanliness, and safety are more important. Most of my time in Querétaro, I took Ubers, but they took anywhere between 10 to even 20 minutes to arrive. My guess is that Uber hasn't been as accepted in Querétaro as in most North American cities. So there isn't as high of a demand, resulting in fewer drivers. This might change in the future. Slowly but surely, Uber is making inroads into most Mexican cities. This also means that taxis are far more common. You can hail one almost everywhere. Querétaro doesn't have a subway system, but it supplements that with an extensive bus network. As I mentioned, Mexico City, with its many international flights, is only a 4-hour drive away. Nevertheless, Querétaro has its own small airport, with international connections to Chicago, Detroit, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. On top of that, you can fly to most Mexican cities directly with the local airlines. Lastly, Mexico maintains a great network of luxury bus lines that allow you to travel, for example, to San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato, or even Mexico City in only a few hours. Perfect for weekend trips. While Latinos participate a lot less in sports than North Americans, a big city like Querétaro still offers options for a lot of different sports. Of course, because Querétaro is landlocked, water sports like fishing, sailing, and surfing are unavailable. I conducted a rudimentary Google Maps search and saw a handful of golf courses, but I do not know if they are public or private. These days, finding a gym in a Latin American city isn't an issue anymore. I found one with Google Maps close to my Airbnb. Another morning, I decided to run along a river, where I was told a bike path had been built. To my surprise, it was a pretty decent option for running close to the historical center of the town. Hiking isn't very popular in Latin America, but having said that, if you like to hike, it seems that there are some options around Querétaro. The website All Trails points to a number of them outside the city, but you probably need a car to get to them. Having totally underestimated the size of the city, I have added a couple of days to my stay. I booked an Airbnb in a suburb called Querétaro because I wanted to experience suburban life, which I assume many of you are interested in as well. So the ride in an Uber took me about 20 minutes from just outside the historic center to my Airbnb in Querétaro, and I can imagine that taking longer during rush hour. Querétaro is a very quiet neighborhood with wide avenues. The problem is that it is so suburban that walking, for example to a store or a tienda, is pretty much out of the question. If you want to live here, you will need a vehicle of some sort. Having said that, the place looks different than any other place I've been in Latin America, and I did kind of like it. It is an upper to upper middle class neighborhood, and there were even several empty lots. In addition, the next morning I wanted to see Querétaro, which my belated research indicated is known to be a unique and nice place to live around Querétaro. So I took another Uber. Querétaro is basically situated around a reservoir and an extension, a golf course. Its upper-class reputation is confirmed by a number of gated communities. Again, a car or a motorbike is likely to be necessary in these suburbs. If I combine my impression of the two suburbs of Querétaro and Querétaro with my experience in the mall and on the highways, I don't see much of a difference between these places and cities and neighborhoods in the American South. So let me sum up. Because of my bad initial research, I had to completely change the focus and critical analysis of Querétaro as a location. It is a city, not a cute picturesque town with limited options and conveniences. Querétaro is a very peculiar location. Its climate, urban setting, and industrial focus makes it a very special place in my list of relocation sites. Here are some of the positive aspects. On the one hand, for a city, it is pretty, with its historic center. On the other, it has all the comforts of a good urban environment. Another positive is that the climate is excellent. Not only do you get the great Mexican food, there is a good chance you won't be craving the food you are used to. Shopping is not only good, but it is almost guaranteed that you can get everything in this city. This is often a hassle in smaller locations. Outside of water sports, there's a good chance that you can engage in your favorite sports in the city and its surroundings. Regarding the negatives, I would point out that public transportation could be an issue. You're probably better off driving yourself. And in general, the urban environment doesn't have the beauty in comparison to other options like beach towns or mountain villages. Remember, this is a big functional city, it isn't paradise. For whom is Querétaro for? First and foremost, professionals who are being offered jobs in Querétaro, but also people who want to test out life in Mexican culture and see if they're cut out to thrive in Latin America. And lastly, people who want to acclimatize to Latin culture, but don't want to jump into the deep end. While I've tried to keep this video as objective as possible, I still don't think I do justice to the reality of life in a city like Querétaro. Just like up in North America, cities have their different neighborhoods and these aren't only nice and pretty. Sometimes it is rough. It is rough seeing the poverty, the desperation, and the dirt. So I leave you with a medley of images that might give you a better sense of what the city is all about.